I would also like to follow up, if I can, Mr. Rowan. You were having a conversation with Senator Kennedy about who seemed to agree that childcare is very important, but the question is, how do we pay for it? So I just want to ask you a little bit more about that. Mr. Rowan, in 2020, Google paid an effective tax rate of 13.5%. And in that same year, 55 other highly profitable giant corporations paid zero in federal corporate income taxes. So let me just ask, do you pay more than that?
Pretty consistently, yes.
Yeah.
And all small business people that are running a successful business and making profit will be paying a higher rate than the 13% that Google was paying. I think
Or the 0%
well,
that the
certainly
55 are
0%,
paying.
right.
Yes.
And the only way that makes any sense is if those corporations are virtually on the verge of going out of business and not making any money.
Right.
But how are they doing that year after year after year?
Yeah.
I think there was a study by the SBA that pegs the average small business rate of taxation at somewhere around 19, almost 20%. So right there, with Google and average small business people, you've got, what, a 7% difference? That just doesn't sound equitable or fair to me. And I don't think if most Americans would know those numbers, they would agree.
Yeah, it doesn't sound
It
fair
isn't.
because it's not fair. Exactly right. So one of the proposals that Democrats have put on the table is a 15% minimum tax just for corporations that make more than $1 billion in profits. And that's in their book reporting, right? Not in how many loopholes they work through on this. It turns out that that would raise about $320 billion. So let's just hold that number. If I had Katie Porter's whiteboard, I'd put that right up here. And then I'd add under it how much we could save if we actually invested in the IRS, and the IRS could go after the wealthy tax cheats, not just poor people whose numbers don't match up between their W-2 forms and what they were able to report where someone's made a mistake. But if they actually spent their time on the folks who are engaged in the most sophisticated of the tax dodges and simply enforced current law, not fancy changes in the law. Best estimate on that from the Treasury Department is that would raise another $400 billion. It's over 10 years. So $320 billion plus $400 billion gives us about $720 billion. I think the estimate that Senator Kennedy was using for the full-scale, all-the-way, permanent version of childcare was about $75 billion a year. So it looks like to me we're not quite there on those numbers, but very, very close, just on two things: enforce the current tax laws and put a 15% minimum tax for the billionaire corporations, and we could pay for childcare. And that's without having to talk about how you pay for childcare by increasing GDP by a percentage point, how we pay for childcare by bringing, as Dr. Spriggs suggested, about 5.2 million new workers back into our economy.
And
Mr. Rowan?
one of the things that I always say is different between a small business businessman, business person, and a corporate business person is I live and work and am in visual contact with my employees all the time. I just know them. They know me. So I am much more invested in their personal lives and understand the consequences of the decisions that I make or that the business makes as we go forward. Corporate people are not quite like that. Now, I'm not taking that completely away from them, but what you just talked about, if you had a minimum 15% to the corporations as
More than $1 billion.
More
It's
than a
not your
billion.
small business. Yeah.
you probably will get pushback from the corporate people that run the business. But I will also tell you that the corporate the people that work in those corporations would go, thank you,
Yeah.
because they will finally get the same benefits that we're talking about that filter down to all of our young families that effectively would be benefiting from this change.
Well, Mr. Rowan, you give us the perfect way to wrap this up. This is about the role of government in helping make this economy work for everyone. Right now, it works great. If you're a corporation that's making more than $1 billion in profits and paying nothing in taxes, but it's not working so great if you're running a small business and your employees can't find childcare. It's not working so great if you're trying to run a childcare business. And it's not working so great if you're one of the parents who can't get into the workforce or can't take a full-time job or can't take an extra job because you can't find the childcare to put you in a position to do that. And that is our job here in Congress. We could do a lot better in making this economy work, not just for a handful at the top, but for everyone. I want to thank you all for being here today. I want to thank those who joined us online for being with us. And with that, senators who may wish to submit questions for the record, questions are due 1 week from today, Tuesday, May 3rd. For our witnesses, you'll have 45 days to respond to any questions. Thank you all again. This hearing is adjourned.